Recently, one of you sent me a spy photo of a new Xpeng electric car seen here in Australia being tested. So the question was, which new electric cars are Xpeng bringing here to Australia and of course to other right-hand drive markets such as potentially the UK, Japan even maybe that could be happening. I've been hearing rumors about that. New Zealand, of course. Then we've got Thailand. Xpeng's global expansion is moving pretty fast, and there are some models that are confirmed as coming. I actually think they potentially, well, specifically one model which is selling insanely well in China, could be a better option than other vehicles such as a Tesla Model Y. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. When I was just in China, I had a look at some Xpeng electric cars just at a dealership, and I was pretty surprised by two new Xpeng EVs. I was surprised because I thought they'd just be like, vehicles that were meant for, or sedans, which were meant for people who, like the BYD Seal, for example. But when you see these vehicles in person, you realize that there is a pretty big disadvantage to something like a Tesla Model 3 or a BYD Seal in comparison to the new Xpeng EVs. And it's really, really obvious. Like you walk up to it and you think, okay. So first of all, Xpeng have the G6 for sale here in Australia right now. And they've sold out of the first two shipments, but I think there's a couple of kind of unusual vehicles in those two orders. So you might be able to get one. I personally have ordered the long range. I'm meant to be picking it up this week. So I'll have some reviews up on the channel very soon. I know I said last week, but anyhow, it's this week. Xpeng are first opening some experience centers. They'll have a major big opening at the airport in Sydney. They have a location in Sydney, and that is being officially open to the public next week. So that's going to be really, really cool. I'll have a video up on the channel about all that, what's happening there. But they also have three experience centres. Those are Wollongong, New South Wales, Port Melbourne, Victoria, and North Coburg in Victoria. In addition to that, they have the flagship site at their Sydney Airport domestic precinct. That's really kind of like an Apple Store kind of experience. They have these massive screens in there, but you can test drive Xpeng EVs at those locations. Servicing. Who's going to be servicing Xpeng vehicles? True EV are working with Ultra Tune, so your Xpeng will be serviced by Ultra Tune. In addition to that, Xpeng are planning on opening 20 locations by the end of next year around Australia. They say that those locations will be strategically placed around Australia, so that there'll be some in Tasmania and Adelaide and Perth, basically allowing everyone to be able to test drive an Xpeng vehicle. So the locations include Brisbane and Adelaide, of course, as well as even the Northern Territory, which is not something I would have expected, but that's happening. So which cars is Xpeng actually bringing? They are planning on bringing the G9 SUV, so that is a similar size, or nearly as big as something like a Kia EV9. G9 SUV is going to be a bit cheaper though than the Kia EV9, so that might be on some people's radars, and they're trying to make that a 7-seater. Though apparently they're hoping to have a 5-seat option and a 7-seat option of the G9 SUV. They're also bringing the X9 people mover, and that's the car that I really personally want. That, I think, is the best people mover on the market in terms of value for money. There's nothing in that segment that is as good as that or anywhere near as good as that within $10,000 of the price. I've heard that will come in at around 90,000 Australian dollars. So that's around just under 60,000 US dollars. So yeah, a fair bit cheaper than other alternatives, and it's amazingly good. It's efficient. It has a lot of range, up to about 600 kilometers of WLTP range. If you're looking at a people mover or an MPV, that's the vehicle you want. Don't buy a Kia Carnival or something like that. This is the vehicle. And for me, the X9 is really the dream car. They're also bringing the P7 Plus sedan and the Mona MO3. The Mona MO3 is half the price of a Tesla Model 3 in China. That's the base model. Now, I don't think they're going to bring the base model here to Australia, but they could. So it's a possibility that you'll be able to buy an Xpeng sedan much cheaper than a BYD Seal or a Tesla Model 3 here in Australia. And the reason that I think this is actually a really cool car, the Xpeng Mona, is because it has a hatchback. Even though it's a sedan, it looks like a sedan, it's got a hatchback, and therefore it's got a much more practical space in the rear of the car. the kind of space where if you put a couple of seats down, you could fit in a bicycle, you could fit in a whole bunch of surfboards. Really, in that sense, it's the most practical sedan that I think is coming to the Australian market. The P7 Plus sedan is similar, but it has way more space. It's a bigger vehicle. It's around 5 meters long. I think it's about 5.1 meters long. So it's even bigger than a Tesla Model S, but it's a similar price to the Tesla Model 3 in China. You can really see why they have pre-sold. I think they've pre-sold about 50,000. Crazy numbers. We're talking a bloodbath Chinese car market. So many manufacturers discounting their vehicles to the point of insanity. And yet Xpeng are pricing that vehicle at a point where there's a lot of rivals, but they've pre-sold, I believe, 50-something thousand of those vehicles. And that's really helping Xpeng to meet new sales goals every month. They're going to break new records in the month of, they just broke a record in November and October, and I'm sure they'll do it again in December. And the key reasons behind that are the P7 Plus and the Mona M03. Well, that and the rest of their cars. I've been saying for years, you guys know this, their cars are incredibly good value. The P7 Plus sedan, though, is, for a lot of people, would be the perfect car. It has the space in the boot of a Tesla Model Y, but it's a sedan. So it's much more aerodynamically efficient than obviously an SUV. And I think the P7 Plus has technology that is better than, I would say, based on reviews that I've been reading, better than about 98% of other electric cars on the market. It uses Tesla-like full camera driving, so it has autopilot that works on cameras alone, and that was a result of the Xpeng CEO going to the United States, in California, driving Tesla's full self-driving vehicles, coming back, and they've utilized that now, that similar kind of technology, and people are saying that it works really well. But I love the fact that it looks kind of more like a sedan, actually looks like an Audi S7 or an Audi RS7 in terms of the silhouette, the shape of the car, but it's got that really practical boot, and it's massive, it's huge. I mean, I laid in that boot when I was in China. I was thinking, this thing is enormous. How can it be this big? Absolutely massive. Price, if it's similar price to a Tesla Model 3, well, it's game over. I mean, Tesla are going to struggle to sell the Model 3, even though it's a great car. I love the Model 3. But the P7 Plus, literally, it's way more practical as a vehicle than a Model 3. It doesn't have that compromise of having that, still got a good boot, but the Tesla Model 3, it's not really a vehicle you'd take, on a road trip with a family of 4, right? It's not. I mean, you'd struggle if you're trying to pack stuff in there. It's got a fair bit of boot space, but you would. It's too compromised. P7 Plus wouldn't have that problem. It's got more boot space than most mid-size SUVs. So that's why I think it's amazing. There's a whole bunch of different electric cars coming to Australia over the next 12 months. But for me, the real standouts, to be honest, of them are the Zeekr 7X, the Xpeng P7 Plus, the Xpeng Mona, the Xpeng G9, and the Xpeng X9. I think those are really, at this point in time, probably the Tesla Model Y Juniper. I'd add that to the list as well. For me, those are the exciting cars coming to the market. Now, of course, Zeekr are planning on bringing some other EVs as well. So those are the brands that are really focusing on electric cars. To be fair, guys, I mean, I'm a big fan of BYD, but they're not really focusing on electric car technology, and that shows in their cars. They have older batteries now. The Blade battery was great 4 years ago. As I mentioned, when I first started this channel, I was talking about the Blade battery constantly. I've done more videos on BYD than any other person in the world by a factor of at least 50% more than anyone else. But facts are facts. BYD are very clearly focusing on plug-in hybrids, not on EV technology. When they bring out the Blade battery version 2, that's when I suggest you buy BYD. At this point in time, I don't see why you would. For me right now, it's really Xpeng and Zeekr that are leading with electric car technology and price points as well. Thanks for watching.